Hey gals, welcome to Binge Free Bestie, the podcast where we ditch the diets, break free from binge eating, and build a safe and empowered relationship with our bodies. I'm your host, Nick Carberia, a registered therapist who totally gets it. Binge eating and body image struggles? Yep, I've been there, done that, and I've got the therapy bills to prove it. But here's the good news, bestie. I've recovered and I'm here to help you to do the same. This potty is all about real, evidence-based strategies from my therapy practice, plus down-to-earth, relatable girl talk with me and some of my amazing besties and other experts who have their own stories, tips, and tricks to share with you. So, whether you're tired of the diet cycle, ready to ditch the shame spiral, or just want to feel more confident in your own skin, then you've come to the right place. It's time to get real about food freedom, body acceptance, self-care, and building a life you truly love. Let's get into it, besties.
Hey besties, welcome back to the podcast. Today I have got one of my besties and colleagues coming in to chat with us about something that we haven't yet explored on the podcast. So warmly welcome in with me, Rachel Evans. So here we are. Welcome to the podcast, Rachel. I'm so excited to finally be able to have you here.
Yeah, thank you so much. I'm really excited as well.
So I thought I would love to have you in because you specialize in something that I haven't spoken about on the podcast, like I just said before, and that is purging or self-vomiting. That is a part of the binge restrict cycle for some people. And I thought it'd be really great to explore that with you today and get some of your tips on how to tackle that if anybody who's listening is struggling with that particular issue. But before we go into the deeper stuff, I'd love you to just let everyone know a little bit about you and maybe share a little bit of your story with us as much as you feel comfy sharing about why you do what you do and why you're so passionate.
Yeah, again, thank you for having me. I love talking about purging. I want to be on more podcasts to talk about this because I think it's something that we don't talk about enough and people can be doing it and then it often feels quite secretive or, quite shameful when people get to that point, and I just want to remove that shame or that stigma around it. So right now, like you said, I'm living in the UK with my husband and my small children and my two cats. So I guess how I got to be doing what I'm doing, I feel like growing up, this is the very short version as well. I could talk for like an hour just about all the different, contributing factors that led me to like binge eating and purging. But yeah, growing up, diet culture, I'm sure you've talked about that a lot on your podcast already. I was just getting these messages like it's better to be thin, or even in TV programs about that they were bullying people for certain characteristics and things like that. Or, Princess Diaries, when she has like her glow up and she's not wearing glasses and having curly hair. Like I had
Yes.
glasses and curly hair, so I was like always straightening my hair. I think I only realized with hindsight that I got a lot of my self-worth from being good at exams. I wasn't in the beginning, like I moved schools when I was 10 to a private all-girls school because my previous school just was really shit. I kept having supply teachers, and so my parents were like, right, we'll move you. But then I moved and I felt like the stupid one because I wasn't getting as good grades as everyone else. So then I kind of learned, oh, you get praise for your grades, like this external thing to you. So I've worked to get better grades and good marks. My school was very much like you go to school, then you go to university. They probably did explore other options, but it wasn't really, explored to a great extent. So I was like, right, okay, right, I'll go. I like psychology. I like helping people. Basically, I live like almost the furthest away from a beach that you can get. So I did a bit of surf lifesaving, but most of it was like in the pool, races and skills and things. I did that to international level. So I think because I was doing that, then I also got a lot of self-worth from that. And so then when I stopped doing that, when I finished university, I've been doing it since I was like 12. I was training a lot. My friends were there. I guess, it was a lot of my time and energy and what I was thinking about. And then I also didn't really know what I wanted to do with my life. So I thought I'll do a master's. That's when I started to get more focused on food and being healthy. As that, I think it gave me something else to think about, but I think it also gave me something else to be good at. And then during,
And you're a high
yeah,
achiever, right? By the sounds
yeah,
of
yeah.
it.
So I think as well with that, I think some of it is innate, but I think, some of it is my experiences and what my parents or my grandparents, teachers have told me. And then I just kind of conformed to that. To my detriment, I think I didn't really know what I wanted to do in my life because I was so busy just like doing what people told me is the next step. That then when I finished my master's, I was like, well, what job can I get now? Because you need a fair amount of experience to get a job in psychology that isn't like a volunteer role. And obviously I got an undergraduate degree and a master's. I didn't want to go, to do a volunteering position at that point. And also I thought I was in a relationship with someone. He didn't think we were, but I thought we were doing like boyfriend, girlfriend stuff. Like I would go around to his house and like watch The Apprentice and stuff, which to me was, I was dating him. I thought it was dating. And then to be fair, it wasn't actually a long time. It was maybe like 3 months. But I think because I've been so busy with academic stuff and the life saving, I hadn't really had a boyfriend, like a serious boyfriend. So this felt quite big to me. We both like going to the gym. We both like eating like steak and broccoli and like, and then we went out on a night out with his friends and he just started making out with this other girl in front of me. And I feel like that was such a turning point for me because the way I took it was like, I'm not good enough. Not actually, you're a dickhead for doing this. You shouldn't be doing that to people. And then I'd watch those programs like Khloe Kardashian Revenge Body. And so I was almost thinking like, okay, I have to diet even harder now and work out even harder now to make him realize, what he's lost and be jealous, even though he probably didn't care. And there's a lot of other good qualities about me, but I wasn't focusing on that because he'd made like some nice comments about my abs. And, I feel like that just put stuff on overdrive. I probably was already going to the gym a lot more, focusing on that a lot more, but this like really sped it up. And then, I just got more and more focused on what I was eating. And it was 2013. And so Instagram was becoming bigger. I was following people on Instagram who like lived in Australia and had a tan and like worked out. And I was like, oh, I want to be like that, despite the fact that I live in the UK and you're probably not really going to get a tan, especially as we were coming into winter. But I was really focused on that. I was doing these different programs and then it got that I was exercising twice a day then. I was feeling really guilty if I missed working out. I was following these eating rules, but then I'd read something else that'd say, oh, don't have that food. And so then I'd follow that diet for a bit. And then I just kept collecting more and more food rules. And then I got a job abroad in Singapore. What I didn't factor in was, my relationship with food and my body and myself that I was taking with me. So everyone says like, oh, Singapore, didn't you have a great time? I'm like, well, yes and no, not really, because, I just spent the whole weekend like looking where could I just walk round and round and round to burn calories. I'd be like, oh, I'm sightseeing, but I wasn't really. I was just obsessed about working out, or people would want to go out and eat the local food, which is something that I used to enjoy, but I would be so stressed about it. And what was in the food that I, hadn't controlled. I'd been watching a lot on YouTube about fruitarian diets or like raw till 4, or if you don't want to do that, the alternatives seem to be, oh, you can have cooked food, but eat a mono meal of like potatoes. Can't just eat a potato with some chicken or something else. You've got to just eat just potatoes. I was just so susceptible to it at that point. It just seemed to make a lot of sense. So they're saying, right, if you do these things, you're going to get this body, or you're going to have this wonderful life that I have in Bali.
Yes, I was watching. Do you remember that Freely the Banana Girl?
Yeah.
I was like obsessed with her, and I can't remember another girl's name, but she just ate huge watermelons for like a whole meal every day. It was like watermelon girl, banana girl, a girl who only ate starch. So she just ate, in New Zealand, they're called kumara, or like sweet potatoes. And I just thought that was amazing that you can lose weight eating potatoes. Hell yeah, I'm doing that diet, the potato diet. But it was so confusing, wasn't it? Just all of these conflicting dietary pieces of information floating around on YouTube or wherever you found it, and you would try to mishmash all of this stuff together and you'd feel like you were never quite doing it well or doing it right because you weren't getting the same results.
I think because they're selling it like, oh, you don't have to deprive yourself. You can eat all of this massive quantity of food. It's not depriving, but like it is depriving because I like yogurt and you're basically telling me I can't eat yogurt. So now I feel really guilty about it. Or should I have that plant-based yogurt? But that plant-based yogurt's got sugar in. And you just tie myself up in such knots about it. And like
Mm.
occasionally I would binge, but like not very often. I was quite like tight on controlling it at this point, despite the fact that I was probably quite often very hangry. I definitely wasn't eating enough. So for me, I did lose some weight because of it. And I know that other people in that situation might not, even if they were eating what I was eating, but I did lose weight because I basically wasn't eating enough, that I was exercising so much. I don't think it helped that I was living with a family there because it was cheaper rent. And I think I got quite isolated. Like I made some friends at the university who were lovely, but they had their own life and stuff. So I was very isolated. Like no one was really watching what I was eating. So I lost this weight. And then my dad came out to visit me and we were supposed to go on a family holiday. And he was like, I'm going to cancel the family holiday if you don't lose weight because don't gain weight because your mom's going to be really upset if you were like this about food. And I just remember I tried to eat something else and I couldn't. Like I bought something from the shop and I knew how many calories it was. And I was like, I was really scared to eat it. I realized that I had a problem. I went to like one support group that was at a hospital. I got like some, help from that. They were all really lovely. But then I just went back into denial because like no one was checking up on me really or couldn't see me. So we did have the family holiday. It was overshadowed by my experience of it was overshadowed by all the food rules and things like that. My dad saw me in a bikini and was like, "Oh, not as thin as I thought," which obviously wasn't, a very helpful comment. Like my arms got quite thin, but my stomach was not like, a pancake or concave or what, I don't know what he was expecting really. So I felt like that wasn't helpful because then I took it as like, oh, okay, it's still fat, which, I wasn't. And even if I was, that shouldn't be the most important thing about me. So yeah. And then I came home because I was really unhappy. I ended up working for my parents and living with my parents. I felt depressed at that point because I just didn't know what to do with my life. And here I am, waking up early to work out. My parents getting on my case because they don't think I should be working out this much. And it all just got like, it's a very privileged position that I could do that. And I had that support from my parents, but equally, I just felt like in such a hole about it. I did actually have a boyfriend this whole time as well, who's now my husband. So I would see him and we would do stuff. But again, it was overshadowed by all these food rules, but they felt so important to me. I can't be flexible about them. I did end up seeing a therapist in the end. I tried to get some support through a charity, which didn't really get anywhere. And then in the end, my dad was like, "You're going to end up in hospital if you carry on like this." I didn't believe him. So I saw a therapist who I think she helped me loosen the food rules. So it was really helpful, but also something shifted and then I started binging. And now I think like, do you want to call it extreme hunger or primal hunger or binging? It's just semantics really, isn't it? What you would want to call it. But I think it was basically because I'd restricted so much, then I ended up binging and it just felt awful because then my body was changing because of it. Like I was so bloated, I was literally waking up in the middle of the night. I would wake up at like 2 a.m. and just go and eat loads of stuff that I wouldn't let myself eat during the day. And then you just get all out of whack, don't you? Because you've eaten all this food in the middle of the night. So then I started making myself throw up because of it. I think at the time you think, oh, this is great because I'm getting rid of it. But actually you can't get rid of everything that you've eaten. I fell into this trap and I think other people do. You're eating more in the binge because you're like, well, it's fine. I'll just get rid of it later. But actually there are lots of health complications that can come from making yourself throw up. So it's not like a get out of jail free card like you think it is. And then for me, I'd split up with my boyfriend because basically we couldn't really do anything around food and we were always falling out. Even though I got a bit with the binging, I did get a bit more flexible. I think part of me realized like, okay, if I'm eating all this stuff at night, maybe if I just ate a bit more in the day, I wouldn't keep eating this at night. I think I did realize that I need to be more flexible, stop cutting out whole food groups and like, it got a bit better, but I was still very focused on healthy eating and like what I thought was healthy eating. So yeah, I split up with my boyfriend. It was quite a wake up call. I remember thinking like, I know I'm choosing the eating disorder over him, but also I felt like I can't not. So that was tricky, but we did get back together because we booked a holiday and we didn't want to lose money and we couldn't change it. I was trying to change it to my friend's name and they're like, oh, you can, but you'll have to pay this much. So we thought, right, let's just go and see. Because I was really devastated. And actually, I stopped seeing my therapist because of it as well, because I talked to her about it. And my perception, I don't think the conversation went like this, to be honest, but my perception, a memory of this conversation is her telling me to talk to him. I drove straight to his house after this therapy session, like when we were split up, and he just shut the door in my face. And I was like, she gives terrible advice. I'm never going back, which I don't recommend that. So then actually I was in denial at that point because yes, I was more flexible with food. I was eating more things. I could eat out without worrying so much, but I would still worry a bit. Looking back at some pictures I took of my food then, I was not eating enough. I thought I was, but I'm like, you've literally got some vegetables for lunch. Like, no wonder you were really hungry all the time. Like, where's some more protein or some more carbs? But it was better than it was, like objectively in terms of amount of food, but it was not great. I was still working out a lot every day. I needed to do 10,000 steps, which people might want to do their 10,000 steps, but it was just when I remember being like in a hotel room, walking round and round and round the room because I hadn't done the 10,000. The length that I would go, or walking around the streets at like 10 o'clock at night. At the time, I was like, right, I need to get these steps. I've just believed it so much that I still need to do these things, but I'm recovered, but also I've all got all this going on. So I lived with housemates for my first year of my PhD. Yeah, I thought things were better. I could set up a health food blog, but all my recipes were like, this is a gluten-free granola, or like, this is I can't even think. Everything had to be free from something, basically. So it was just jumping on all these different bandwagons for that. It was good because I did make a lot of friends through the blog. There was something that's not going now. It's like Health Bloggers Community. And they would do events in London. And I actually won some awards through them for my blog. Cool. So that was really nice. So I think it was good because actually I felt the sense of achievement from that. So that was really positive. And I was doing really well at my PhD to begin with. But I was still making myself throw up probably at least once a week. And I was stealing my housemate's food, which was food that I didn't feel comfortable with. And like trying to make it look like I hadn't taken some of their peanut butter. And also I would occasionally at that point still wake up in the night and want to go and eat something. But it wasn't the quantity that I was eating before, but it was still happening. Or like my housemates would come home from a night out and I would just be in the kitchen like, oh, okay, this is awkward now. I'm just like having my little binge in the kitchen and now someone's caught me. So it wasn't okay, but I thought it was. I don't know if you ever had that like weird time when it's not as bad as it was, but it's not okay, but you're like, that's fine. Just you just get used to it, don't you, I think?
Totally. And I know that I thought that I had recovered from binge eating at a certain point because I wasn't binging on 5 burgers anymore. I was only binging on 2. But the behavior and the emotional fallout and the secrecy, the shame, the hiding in my car, the hiding the rubbish, all of that was still the same. So the quantity was a little bit less, but all of the other surrounding behaviors were the same. And I thought that I was recovered as well for a while until I had a light bulb moment. Like if my partner would find the rubbish, I would just feel so guilty and I'd just feel like, oh, he's not going to love me. I'm an awful person and, everything else that you make it mean. And that's kind of when I realized, oh, no, I'm still stuck. There's still something not quite right here. I don't think I can say that I'm recovered.
Yeah, I don't know if it for you, but I think I hadn't really addressed what is going on under this, like the other factors to do with it. Like I wasn't restricting as much, but I was still restricting and not allowing myself certain things because like the type of things I would binge on were chocolate because okay, maybe I'd let myself have this small bar of like dark chocolate that's meant to be good for you or like some raw chocolate bar or something, but it wasn't actually what I really wanted to be eating. It was a very mixed bag of like really nice good things happening and then also the undercurrent. I was really stressed because in my mind the PhD wasn't going very well because I hadn't managed to analyze my data. I think that was playing into it. Was that before I would only ever like binge and purge in the evening or like in the middle of the night, but then the more stressed I got about my PhD, like I would go to uni in the day and I would come home for lunch and it was a bit weird because at the same time I was trying to let myself eat more different foods, but sometimes they felt like a trigger. So there was that side of it going on, but also the stress side of it. Like I realized afterwards that I didn't want to go back to uni because I didn't think I was doing well enough. So I would come home at lunchtime and then binge and purge at that point, and then it would just carry on until the evening. So it was getting more frequent. And then it got to the point that like I would wake up and think like, do I have time to go to the shop and buy more food so I can binge and purge before my lecture? So then actually I feel like at that point it got a lot more about emotion regulation and got about like, actually, if I'm doing this, I can avoid going to uni because I just felt horrendous. And like didn't think I could go back to uni. So it got a lot more frequent, like within the space of a couple of months, that I felt like, right, this is absolutely taking over everything. Like I tried to go to a house bloggers event that I'd needed to get the train to, and I tried to let myself eat something different at the train station, and then ended up like making myself throw up on the train. So for me, like I know people do that. People do make themselves throw up in different places, but for me, it had been very much like, this is me in my bathroom, like almost a stereotype of bulimia. But then I think it was getting broader to like, oh, I'll do it there. Oh, now I'll do it in a cafe as well because I don't want to have eaten that thing. So it was just the scope of it was just creeping. And I was quite worried at that point because I think, like you say, you get so used to like, oh, I just throw up in my bathroom and that's fine now. Even though it's not fine because actually it's still very dangerous, but it is normal. And then it was when I found myself doing all these other things to try and compensate that I was like, actually, do you know what? This is really impacting me. And then I went on holiday with my boyfriend and I didn't want to binge and purge because we were in the same hotel room. But, if you're so used to doing it, it's all you can think about. I spent the whole time thinking like, when is he not going to be here so I can do it? But I also really wanted to recover. And so he went on a bike ride and I was like, right, this is my day. Like I'm counting up to this day. And I remember going to the shop and putting all the stuff in my basket, like in Spanish. So I wasn't really sure what it was, but I was like, okay, these look like, things. And then I put it all back on the shelf and was like crying. And they probably thought like, who's this weird girl who's just come into our shop, like filled her baskets crying and put it all back on the shelf? Because I knew I really didn't want to do it. And it really wasn't, in some ways, obviously it's helpful behavior. Like we talked about, there's a reason why you're doing it, but also I know, right, this is not going to help me enjoy my holiday and have a nice time if I'm going to do this. So I didn't do it on that day, but then I ended up doing it, binging and purging on another day. And I think then that Christmas was awful because I just engineered the situation to be by myself and everyone else was going to do nice Christmassy things and I was on my own so I could binge and purge because it just feels like such an urge. Like if I didn't do it for a few days, like it will build up so much that I would be like, I have to do this for like that, I guess that release or that relief, or like I hated being sick when I was younger, but then it got to this point that I was like, I need to do this to get through my day. When people haven't experienced it, people are like, why are you doing that?
Would you
but
want to
you
do
get
that?
so much from it.
Yeah, and I have women who have shared with me that when they purge, they get a sense of like euphoria or joy from the act of doing that straight after the vomiting because it's this sense of control. Was that something that you experienced? Or
Yeah, I think there's a couple of things going on. I think psychologically, you can get that feeling, like you say, that control or that like, I've done a good job at this. And I think as well, I escalated in the ways that I was trying to make myself vomit to like try and be even better at it, which actually often come with more health consequences. I want to talk about, and I think it is important to make people aware of the risks. But like when I was looking at, the risks of it, I was just getting more ideas of different things that I could do. So yeah, but also physiologically as well. There's some evidence that when you vomit, it releases endorphins.
yeah.
Because think if you're actually genuinely, ill and your body's making you throw up to get rid of this food and then you feel awful, but it kind of counteracts that with like the pain relief endorphins
I mean,
as
it's true.
well.
You always do feel better if you're not feeling great and you throw up, and usually I'm like, oh, I do feel a bit better. So I can understand that.
Yeah. So I think for me as well, maybe what's interesting to know is first, I was purging because I binged. Like, I need to get rid of this. But then actually, like you were saying, people do get some benefits from the purging. And so in the end, I was actually only eating so much so I could throw up. And that became the thing that I wanted. I felt like compelled to go and do it. Or like I say, I can't get through my day or my evening unless I've done this. Now, I don't think it is an addiction in the same way that maybe alcohol or certain drugs can be addicting, but also, that people can feel parallels to that. I think it's like when people say, I'm addicted to sugar, it's not the same, but it can feel similar.
That urge to partake in. the sugar or the vomiting is so powerful that it feels like it's out of your control. You feel that you're driven by some, puppet master even. So how did you manage to break that cycle? Because it sounds like a really vicious cycle to have been stuck in, and one that you were stuck in for quite some time. It sounds like you started having those light bulb moments where you're like, this is really getting quite serious. It's taking over my life. I'm not able to be fully present in my relationship or holidays or with my family. So what was the moment for you where you realized, like, I need more support? Or
I think, like you say, it was just building up those, what is this costing me? What is it taking away from me to keep
Mm,
doing this? It kind of kept building up and were getting my attention. I think that time that I mentioned about the train was quite pivotal because I was like, right, this is stopping me from doing the things that I enjoy and the things that I know are going to make me feel better, that I can't do those things now. So there was that. I got this Facebook ad for like a webinar about setting up your own business and being a coach. And I was like, oh, okay, maybe I could do this because actually I knew about health behavior change from my master's. So I was like, oh, okay, maybe there's another option for me in terms of like what I enjoy. I did reach out to a charity for help, but they said, oh, you're too severe, you'll have to go to the NHS. Previously, I had actually had a couple of sessions with the NHS when I was talking about the restricting for anxiety, not eating, and I didn't really like the person I was paired with, so I didn't engage and just kind of dropped out of that. I guess at this point I didn't want to pay for
mm,
therapy again because I was looking online. There were some like group programs for bulimia, and I'd read the testimonials and I would just think that will not happen to me. It did feel very broken. What is wrong with me that I can't stop doing this even when I want to? And I know about health behavior change, but I'm still doing this. Like it didn't have all of the pieces of the puzzle. I still thought like, oh, I spend my money on a juice cleanse because that's going to reset my relationship with food. Or like I'll spend my money. I saw a nutritionist who did this has like a resonance thing on your fingers to tell you what you're allergic to.
I did that
And it's
too.
like, oh, you're allergic to bananas. Maybe that is some truth in it, but I just don't think at that time it was helpful for me to be told I'm allergic to bananas and cut out another food that actually I
Exactly.
feel fine eating. So it probably does have its place, but I was not the consumer that needed it at that point.
No, I was very similar. I was a psych student. I was learning different tools. I was learning about behavior change as well. Yet I was doing these behaviors behind closed doors that I just couldn't get my way out of them. Like I just felt so stuck and so hopeless and totally broke. I was a pretty flat broke student. However, I did always manage to find money for the next diet or the next fix. I always managed to, like, I was taking out credit cards and things like that, or using my student allowance to pay for, like you did, the box of juice cleansers or the milkshake diet or the fat burning pills. But I didn't want to spend the money on going to see a therapist. I don't know what the mental block was, but I guess I felt like I was so indoctrinated by diet culture that I still believe that that was the fix. That next cleanse or that next pill would fix me. And I don't need to go and spend XYZ amount of dollars on a therapist because what's that going to do? I just didn't want to do it yet, just wasn't ready.
Even being a psychologist, I think maybe I didn't really know what a therapist was going to help me with. I think I was just a bit like, I don't believe that they can actually help me because there's
Yeah.
something so wrong with me. So I'm going to go the NHS route. And so I had two appointments with the NHS. The first appointment, actually, there were some negative things like you have to be weighed, which I didn't want to be weighed. And I understand the reasons why they would do it in terms of they're worried about risk. But I was like, look at me. I'm not an underweight BMI. So the second appointment at the NHS was supposed to be with a dietitian, but she didn't turn up. And I was like really offended, but I was like really just wanting her to tell me what to eat to make everything better, but also to make me have my dream body at the same time as like having no problems with food. So I'm going to do it myself. I was like, right, I can look at this like a habit. You know,
Yeah.
how do you break a habit? I was like, right, okay, well, the avoidance is the reward. What I'll do is I'll still come home from uni and I'll make myself a lunch that kind of feels a bit safer. Like we're not going to push out the boundary. And then when I get that urge to binge, I will do something else, and like I don't have to go back to uni. Because I think sometimes that thinking I have to go back was actually what was making things worse. So I guess in terms of like achievement at uni, it's not the best, but in terms of like actually get to your end goal and don't drop out, it wasn't even dropping out, I would say. It was more like making the choice to leave based on my circumstances. I think sometimes dropout has negative connotations, doesn't it? My supervisors were actually really supportive because I did tell them when it was Eating Disorder Awareness Week, I was like, all of this stuff is going on. I think I just need to leave because I really hate this PhD. And they were like, oh, but you're really good at it. Like, give it a chance. And like, what has helped before. I also started doing yoga, like in a church hall with some old people. So it was like really gentle and more like, I guess, focused on mindfulness or like being present with the different moves and things. I was also using my savings at that point for different trainings. I got a few clients. I guess I stopped binging and purging, like I would say relatively quickly. I had some then lapses. Maybe I didn't stop binging very quickly. I stopped purging because I was like, for me, that is what's carrying it on. If I know I'm going to get rid of it, like I was saying, that has escalated the behavior. Whereas we were talking previously, weren't we, about people think you have to stop purging before you stop binging. But actually, for some of my clients, they're like, I'm only purging because I binge. I don't really want to be purging, but I feel like I have to. Whereas I wanted that bit. So for them, actually, we would work more on like, okay, how can we reduce urges to binge? How can we, help you feel more stable about what you're eating throughout the day? So I think for them it would be another approach, but for me it was very much like, right, if I binge, I cannot go and purge. So I just watched like 7 seasons of Gossip Girl, like a month probably. I don't really know how long it was. I didn't keep track, but it was like, right, if I'd had binge at lunchtime. I was living with my boyfriend at this point for my 3rd year of my PhD. I'm just going to sit on the sofa and I'm not going to go to the bathroom. I'm not going to do anything, and I'm going to watch Gossip Girl while playing Candy Crush on my phone because it gives you a little high of like, oh, I got that level, and a distraction. I'm just going to distract myself until it feels a bit better and that fullness has gone. And I think the binges did happen in that, I guess with a binge, it's that like, I can't think what the word is right now, but you're trying to eat it quickly. And it feels a bit like, oh, a bit out of control, or like I'm zoning out when I'm eating those things. But the quantity was getting smaller at that point because I was, I think, more flexible and eating more during the day. And I was still really stressed about my PhD, but I was happy about other things and like my blog. I was like, right, what does help me feel better? Like, what is the reward that I'm after now? And how else could I get that reward? When I started thinking like that, actually, I started reading, I call them like layman psychology books, like kind of more pop psychology books. So not a textbook, but it was still about psychology. So I was like, okay, I'll just spend my afternoon reading this like psychology book that actually really helped. But if someone just told me, it didn't. But I think because I came to it myself and was choosing to do it for myself, or even sometimes when I would go for a walk for that reason, it was actually helping me.
We need to figure out our own toolkit. And I agree. For example, if someone told me to do like meditation or breath work, it doesn't work for me. I'm just in my head. It's just not a tool that I can't distract myself with meditation or breath work. Even though I did silent retreats, I went to India, I dove really deep into that world. And at the end, I finally realized, you know what, like I am an active meditator. So going for the walk works for me, or doing the yoga. So the movement-based mindfulness is the way that I was actually able to urge surf or get through that urge to binge. Sitting and just trying to breathe didn't work for me. So I've got my toolkit and you've got yours. And I always encourage my clients is that I'm going to give you ideas and things to play around with. Give it a go. If it doesn't work, cool. Just try something else. Build up your own kite or toolkit.
Yeah. I don't know if you have any more questions, but thank you for having me. Thank you for letting me ramble on about this.
No, and I think because we connected at a binge eating summit earlier this year, which feels like a lifetime ago, I just thought it'd be lovely to have you in here to talk about this specific thing, the purging and vomiting, because exactly like you said, it's shrouded in so much secrecy and shame. And I think let's just be real, let's talk about it, and let's let people know that it can go alongside the binge restrict cycle and it can be worked on. Like there are things that you can do. You're not going to be stuck there. yes, there are medical complications when you're taking part in that. And so, if this is something that's happening for you, please ask for help because we don't want you to have long-term effects from this. Do that kind of pros and cons, like what is this behavior costing me? What makes my life meaningful? What do I aspire to? Who do I aspire to be? When I walk into a cafe, what would the highest, kind of healthiest version of me behave like? Would she be confident and calm? Would she, pick the croissant and be like, actually, it's no big deal. I can have the croissant and I'm not going to have a big guilt spiral on the drive home. Like, imagine what that could be like and let yourself dream and visualize it in detail and let that be your why behind the discomfort of doing the work because it's not comfortable, right? And as you said, like you had lapses along the way, recovery is not linear. It's not a 1 + 1 is 2 or you go A to Z straight away. We always talk about the spiral staircase. As long as you keep going up the staircase, it's a spiral going up, up, up. If you fall back a few steps by having a binge or having a purge, you're still much higher than where you had started. You're not back at the start line, at the bottom of the staircase. So it's all worth it. You'll all get there in time. And I think another thing that popped up for you was that isolation. So make sure that you talk to someone. There's no shame in this. One of the biggest steps that you can take in recovery is asking for help or finding a community, a safe community. Of course, like be wary of what you're reading online or who you might choose to follow. There's lots of different recovery accounts or health coaches or whatnot online. So just take everything with a grain of salt. There's heaps of other really amazing people that we can point you in the direction of. But the first step is moving out of that space of denial, building up your why, breaking that isolation, starting to choose new coping tools. Yeah. Amazing. Well, thank you so much for sharing your story. I think there's something really, really powerful in sharing a lived experience of struggling with food and eating in our body. I think especially coming from someone who might be looked at as an expert. I think when we are able to be vulnerable and share what we struggled with in our past, or maybe even now, like I would hazard to say that, you'll still have those thoughts from time to time. Like you'll still have crappy body image days. Like we all do. Again, it's not like a finish line in this. You're still subjected to
Yeah.
all of the same messaging and marketing about your weight, your shape, beauty standards, body standards. Eat this, don't eat that. So of course, sometimes that old little voice can whisper in your ear, but I'm sure you've got quite a big toolkit by now. If people want to find you or move into your world a little bit more, how can they get in touch with you or where can they find you on the internet?
Yeah, so I'm most active on Instagram, which is rachel.evans.phd. I've also got a podcast, which Nick has been on my podcast talking about, what was it? Three triggers to binging. Something around that. 3 reasons you're
I can't even
binging.
remember. I think
It was
that's
only
what
a
we
few
talked
weeks ago.
about.
But yeah, that was a good episode. So the podcast is called Just Eat Normally, or my website, eatingdisordertherapist.co.
And I'll make sure to put all of those details in my show notes if you want to catch up with Rachel. So thank you so much for being here. And thank you everyone for listening in, and I'll catch you again next week. Ciao!